Hockey. I mean, no one talks hockey like you, Hacksaw.
Gulls, I told you last week I thought they had a chance to really be decent out of the gate with all these young guys that the Anaheim Ducks were sending down from the NHL. Well, they didn't get all the young draft picks here, but what they got was a cross section of good goaltending, really deep on defense. You add into the equation some guys who can score. The Gulls go on the road. They go to Ontario. They beat the LA Kings top farm club, and they really beat them up. And they got 75 saves out of their goaltenders. I mean, it was a really stunning win Friday night. Alex Stalock, a former Chicago Blackhawk goaltender, whom the Ducks signed late, sent here. He's a veteran. He's here. 3 NHL veteran defensemen, and then the collection of all the young kids. Stalock had 40 saves on the first night. They played the Swedish rookie, Kalle Klang, the second game. He had 35 saves. And the Gulls win back-to-back games in Ontario, which is a tough place to play. So the Gulls are back home. Pavel Regenda scored 5 goals in the first 2 games. Right winger, Jacob Perreault had a couple. And they had the veterans on defense that really stabilized everything in front of Stalock and in front of Klang. So here's my thought. San Diego, I think, is a really good hockey town. Has not had good teams the last 2 years with the Gulls. And, of course, prior to that, they had to leave because of COVID, and they played up in Anaheim. Friday night home opener. I bet the Pechanga Arena is going to be a madhouse. And, of course, the Gulls have something kind of cool. I call it Beer Friday. They really, I mean, they have all these special promotions on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been to a hockey game or you're a Gulls fan who kind of got lost, you need to go back and sample this team right now, Beer Friday. And by the way, the enemy, Ontario Reign, they'll be in here. It'll be 3rd game in a row that they play Ontario before the Ducks then embark on the rest of the American Hockey League schedule. So there's potential. I don't think everybody in Anaheim with the Ducks is going to be on that roster for a long period. I still think a couple of those high draft picks are going to wind up here. This has the potential to be a really good team. So if you're a hockey fan, you need to sample Beer Friday. It's kind of cool at the Sports Arena.
That sounds great. I mean, I went to a Gulls game last year, and it was a great experience. And there are a lot of really hardcore Gulls fans. I mean, they show up in their gear and they're ready to go. I mean, the fans here in San Diego, and it's to me, you know, as a sports guy that I follow baseball, football, basketball, I don't give enough attention personally to hockey. But the more I learn about it, the more I understand how great the sport is. And I also understand how San Diego is a legitimate hockey town. I think it's great. But I just like listening to the old hockey stories from you. I mean, you know, being on the bus with all those guys in your early broadcasting career, like when it was like slap shot. I mean, you got any more of those stories, Hacksaw?
No, it's just that it's a different culture. I do you have to excuse me, I'm fighting a cold here. I will tell you this. I always covered hockey as a talk show host in San Diego because we were on a big signal. And I covered it because, A, I'm a fan of the NHL, and I came from a hockey background. But I also knew with our big signal, the old Extra 690, and even at the mighty 1090, that our signal was busting into LA and busting into Anaheim. And obviously, home of the Ducks, home of the Kings. So we did so much coverage of the NHL, and we got so much response. I think back to the night the LA Kings traded for Wayne Gretzky. I mean, it set the NHL on its ear.
Yeah.
People responded. I mean, it was such a monstrous trade to get Gretzky from the Edmonton Oilers. And Peter McNall, the owner, was just, you know, he was a doer. And he paid a tremendous price, but Gretzky got here and got the Kings to the Stanley Cup. And San Diego has a great tradition of minor league hockey, going back to the old Western Hockey League. You know, John, you and I have talked about the original 6.
Yes.
Well, the original 6 meant there were a lot of hockey players who never got to the NHL. And those guys wound up in the old American Hockey League and what was then the old Western Hockey League. And there were guys who were making tons of money playing in the Western Hockey League, some of the San Diego Gulls. So I knew there was a legacy and fairly successful run of minor league hockey here. And they had gone to the World Hockey Association with the Mariners and didn't have great success. It only lasted 3 years before the NHL, WHA wound up merging and San Diego got left out. But the thing that drove home the point of how cool a hockey market this place is what happened right after they announced we're putting an AHL franchise in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
The Anaheim Ducks, who had their AHL team in Norfolk, Virginia, moved it back here. And they had a fans fest greet the team on a Sunday in February. And they drew 8,500 at the sports arena.
Holy moly.
I was staggered. And I walked through the concourse before the event started because I was one of the MCs. And nobody wore clothes. Everybody wore...
Wait, nobody wore clothes?
Well, let me finish the statement here. Everybody... I mean, this is in winter, and it was cold.
Yeah.
And people showed up in Maple Leaf jerseys and Ranger jerseys and
nice.
Montreal jerseys and old Detroit Red Wing Original 6 jerseys and Blackhawk jerseys. I mean, it was phenomenal how many fans were there. And the first group of years, this team led the American League, which has been in existence since the 1920s, led them in attendance. And they were, I mean, and on weekends, they were getting 9,000 to 10,000. And after Christmas, they were getting 11,000 to 12,000.
Nice.
Now, it kind of drifted away because the team had to go to Anaheim during the COVID for 2 years, so we had no home games here and no fans in the building. And the last 2 seasons have been substandard. So that being said, I think this is just a really good hockey town. And if they put a good product on the field, and by the way, you like Beer Friday, I sample it. I think you'll enjoy it. That's my statement on hockey. One other time.